Ecuador's authorities suspended school activities and militarized security as violence hits the region. In Russia, President Vladimir Putin and the head of the new development bank, Dilma Rousseff, met ahead of the second Russia-Africa summit. And in Niger, military officials announced they carried out a coup overthrowing President Mohamed Bazoum. The African nations are closed and a night curfew is in effect. Hello, welcome to teleSUR English. I am Estefania Bravo from the headquarters of Quito in Ecuador. This is from the south. Ecuador's Esmeralda province suspended school activities and military security as violence is hitting the region. After the intense day of violence perpetrated on Tuesday in several sectors, the Provincial Security Committee decided to adopt measures to maintain order and to confront the insecurity that has been affecting the population. On Thursday, the Argentine president and pre-candidate of Union por la Patria party, Juan Guaidó, led an act together with the former president of Bolivia, Evo Morales, at the School of Dentistry of Buenos Aires University. During the event, they talked about strategic resources for the region and Argentina's electoral context as a South American nation will hold its primary elections. In Argentina, indigenous communities of Jujuy went to the capital of the country to demand the repeal of the reform to the provincial constitution, which endorses the pillage of its ancestral territories and criminalizes the protest. Our correspondent, Joaquin Brandt, with details in the following report.
With the first rays of the sun, the communities performed a ceremony to ask the ancestors and the Pachamama to accompany the brothers who began their path to Buenos Aires. From La Cuica in the extreme north of Argentina, the third Malón de la Paz started a march combining journeys on foot and by car to reach the federal capital.
We do not kneel anymore. They are simple usurpers. We are the owners, and with that pride we are going to walk.
Upon arriving in Purmamarca, the indigenous communities carry out an act in which they reaffirm their claims. They will ask the Supreme Court of Justice to rule the nullity of the amendment to the provincial Magna Carta imposed by the governor of Jujuy and a pre-candidate for the vice president, Gerardo Morales. They also affirm that they will address the legislative branch. The National Congress approves a federal intervention law for Jujuy, and that the National Congress approves a community property law for the indigenous peoples of Argentina. They further highlight that the intermittent roadblocks and peaceful camps will continue throughout the provincial territory despite the persecution and criminalization of the protests.
We are already tired of waiting for these serene people who every day make us fight the poor against the poor.
Brothers who stay in permanence who have the same value as the brothers who are going to march to Buenos Aires. All with one heart and the same objective, brothers, united like the fingers of the hand. At the late afternoon, unions, social and human rights movement that make up the multi-sector against reform received the third La Paz raid in San Salvador de Jujuy. They are expected to arrive in Buenos Aires on August 1st, Mother Earth Day.
Joaquín Brandt, teleSUR, Jujuy, Argentina.
In Chile, the Humedales de Tolten Cultural Fair, which took place at the La Moneda Cultural Center, concluded. The event began on Saturday, July 22nd, featured a wide variety of cultural activities of the Araucanía. Among the handicrafts that were offered during the exhibition were textiles in different techniques with materials such as sheep, wool, felt, and other vegetable fibers, basketry in pita, leather goods, among many other activities. On Wednesday, Cuba commemorated the 70th anniversary of the assault of the Moncada and Carlos Manuel de Céspedes barracks led by Fidel Castro with the aim of overthrowing the dictatorship of Fulgencio Batista. With the presence of Army General Raúl Castro Ruz, leader of the Cuban Revolution and the first secretary of the Central Committee of the party and the president of the Republic, Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermúdez, the central act for the 70th anniversary of the assault on the Moncada and Carlos Manuel de Céspedes barracks began. And in the meantime, the Cuban president pointed out that the assault on the Moncada was the beginning of the Cuban uprising against U.S. imperialism.
The actions of July 26, 1953 were the beginning of the end of the last dictatorship installed in Cuba with the moral and material support of the United States. For that reason, they don't forgive the revolution. For that reason, and because they thought that with the physical disappearance of the historical generation, they could break the national independence, the international solidarity, the defense of the socialist alternative to the savage capitalism.
And the Cuban president also pointed out that the policy of sanctions and blockade implemented by Washington against the island is a consequence of the Cuban emancipation in pursuit of a socialist project.
More aggressive and intolerant they have shown themselves to be by constantly asserting that there is no force in the world that can make us renounce those principles, that can make us renounce those Marxist but also Marxist and Fidelista ideals that inspire the tireless struggle for the greatest possible social justice. This explains the severity of the economic blockade and the current validity of the reinforcement measures maintained by the government of Donald Trump and the escalation of the blockade.
In Cuba, the exhibition Space Anarchy by Spanish photographer Ángel Marcos was inaugurated. The exhibition is being held at the National Museum of Fine Arts in the Cuban capital and is made up of unpublished photographs, video projections, and installations. During the inauguration, the artist pointed out that his discourse is purely contemporary and practical. He intended to make it look like a journalistic record of what is going on. We're taking our first break now. Join us again after this, but also don't forget to follow us on our TikTok account at teleSUR English for more news. Stay with us. Welcome back. After meeting with the head of the New Development Bank, Dilma Rousseff, the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, assured that the BRICS countries do not conspire against anyone and work for mutual interests. The Russian president pointed out that although Rousseff has great experience, it will not be easy for her to fulfill her functions due to the fact that in the world context, the dollar is used as an instrument for political struggles.
Between our countries, the BRICS countries, relations are developing in international currencies. Payments are being made, and in this connection, it seems to me that the bank can also play a significant role in the development of our joint activities.
I would also like to welcome the Russia-Africa Summit initiative because we all know that often these countries are left without the necessary resources, and everyone focuses on the issue of their debt, ignoring the need for resources that is observed there. And it seems unacceptable to me to impose some kind of conditions and requirements in exchange for funding, as is done now by international organizations.
On Wednesday, Russian President Vladimir Putin met with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi on the sidelines of the Russia-Africa Summit in St. Petersburg. Putin has described the two-day summit that opens on Thursday in St. Petersburg as a major event that would help boost their ties with a continent of 1.3 billion people that is increasingly assertive on the global stage. And on Wednesday, Russian President Vladimir Putin held talks with Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed ahead of the Russia-Africa Summit. During the meeting, Putin said Russia will be more than triple the numbers of Ethiopian students it hosts and cover their education costs. On Wednesday, the Russian Defense Ministry reported that all Ukrainian attacks in the direction of Kyiv were repelled, adding that Russian troops progressed in the direction of Liman, reporting an advance of up to 2 kilometers.
July 26th, the enemy resumed intensive offensive operation in the direction of Orikhiv and conducted a massive attack by the forces of 3 battalions reinforced with tanks. The courageous and professional actions of the 1810th Marine Brigade of the 71st Motorized Rifle Regiment of the 42nd Motorized Rifle Division repelled all attacks of the armed forces of Ukraine. Positions were held. In the Lyman direction, units of the 15th Motorized Rifle Brigade of the Center Group of Troops continued offensive operations in the area of the settlement of Sergivka of the Luhansk People's Republic. The advance amounted to up to 3 kilometers along the front and 2,700 meters deep into the enemy defenses.
In 2023, the El Niño weather pattern has brought extreme heat to many countries in the Northern Hemisphere, including Japan. For the past 8 consecutive days, Tokyo residents have endured temperatures above 35 degrees Celsius, setting a new record for the month of July. On Tuesday, in some parts of Tokyo, temperatures went slightly above 38 degrees Celsius. The authorities of Greece declared a state of emergency in the entire island of Rhodes due to heavy forest fires. Residents of the island of Rhodes described the immense loss over the past week when fires razed thousands of acres of forest, destroying wildlife and property, while the Greek government evacuated at least 19,000 people. In Algeria, fires have left at least 34 people dead in the northern region in the African country. According to local reports, most of the blazes, which started on Sunday, have now been put out. However, the horrors of the past few days around the most affected region are just emerging. Among those killed in hard-hit Béjia were 10 soldiers encircled by flames during an evacuation, the Defense Ministry reported on Monday night. We're taking our last break now. Join us again after this, but also don't forget to visit us on our YouTube channel at teleSUR English for more news. Stay with us. Welcome back. Military announced a coup d'etat in Niger. The announcement came hours after it became known that the country's president was being held at the presidential palace by his guards. A group of military officers announced on Wednesday during a speech on local TV that a coup has been carried out.
This day, July 26, 2023, we, the Defense and Security Forces, under the National Committee for the Salvation of the People, have decided to put an end to the regime you know. This follows the declaration made in view of the security situation and poor economic and social governance. We reaffirm our commitment to respecting all the commitments made by Niger. We assure the national and international community that the physical and moral integrity of the deposed authorities will be respected, in accordance with the principles of human rights.
The UN spokesperson said on Wednesday that the Secretary General condemned any attempt to seize power by force and called on all actors involved to exercise restraint and to ensure the protection of the constitutional order.
The Secretary General is following closely the situation in Niger. He condemns in the strongest terms any efforts to seize power by force and to undermine democratic governance, peace, and stability in Niger. The Secretary General calls on all actors involved to exercise restraint and ensure the protection of constitutional order. The United Nations stands by the government and people of Niger.
In Nigeria, the National Association of Resident Doctors has directed its members to embark on an indefinite strike beginning Wednesday, July 26. This development is coming less than 48 hours after the Speaker of the House of Representatives pleaded with the doctors for understanding and pledged the new administration's commitment to address their concerns. Ghana's parliament voted to abolish the death penalty, making the country the latest of several African nations to abolish capital punishments in recent years. No one has been executed in Ghana since 1993, although 176 people were on death row as of last year, according to the Ghana Prison Service. In Turkey, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan received China's top diplomat and newly appointed Foreign Minister Wang Yi at the presidential palace in Ankara. The director of the Office of the Foreign Affairs Commission of the Communist Party of China is on a one-day visit in which both sides will address bilateral relations as well as international and regional issues of common concern. And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also be sure to follow us on our socials, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Until next time.